Hi, and welcome to That's Ready Mysterious. Join me for an intriguing look into real-life mysteries. Who was the mad gasser of Mattoon? What was whaling at the Wilga waterhole? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sreadymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about dissociative identity disorder, or DID. Dr. Frank Putnam, psychiatrist at the Laboratory of Developmental Psychology at the National Institutes of Health, said, "We have a work self and a play self, for instance, but we are the same person. But each of those selves has its own repertoire of emotional states, memories, and to some extent an underlying biological pattern. Those minor differences are seen in their extremes in the patients with multiple personality." Dissociative identity disorder used to be called multiple personality disorder. This changed in 1994. There are two types of DID. The first is possession, where it's as if an outside being has taken over. The second is non-possession, which might feel as though the person is suddenly watching themselves from a movie instead of being in control. DID has been diagnosed in about 1.5% of the world's population. DID is characterized by a person having two or more separate and distinct personalities that control the individual's behavior at different times. One personality usually cannot remember what the other personalities have done. The different personalities or identities are referred to as alters. The alters could have differences in speech, mannerisms, attitudes, thoughts, and gender orientation. They might even have biological differences like allergies, dominant hands, and the need for glasses. An individual with DID could have as few as 2 alters and as many as 100, although the average is about 10. There are a lot of symptoms of DID. They include things like depression, suicidal tendencies, anxiety and panic attacks, alcohol and drug abuse, confusion, memory problems, delusions, headaches, flashbacks, eating disorders, personality changes, selective loss of memory, and disorientation. In order to be diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, an individual must present with self-injurious behaviors and suicide attempts. People who try to get help for their DID usually do not realize they have multiple identities. They usually seek help because they are experiencing things like amnesia and time loss. They may be unable to remember events in all or in part. Sometimes they encounter strangers who swear they know the individual. They can find themselves in a place and not know how they got there. Some of them find things in their possessions that they don't remember purchasing. In some cases of DID, the alters will have biological changes. For example, in 1911, Mary Reynolds, one of the earliest cases of MPD in the US, had both blindness and deafness in an alter identity. Some studies have compared EEGs, or electroencephalograms, across identities. They have noted differences in those EEGs, mostly in the alpha rhythm. One patient sweated heavily in a warm room but had an alter that was immune to heat and didn't sweat at all. Some patients have different responses to medications while in alters. Some patients experienced dermatological changes, otherwise known as stigmata. One patient would develop track marks when in a drug-addicted alter but had none in other alters. Another patient would get small red circles on their skin when talking about being tortured with cigarettes. For over 100 years, clinicians have reported cases of major biological changes in people with DID as they switch between alters. Rashes have appeared and disappeared. In some cases, welts have appeared, as have scars and other tissue wounds. Often, different alters will have different handwriting, artistic talent, even knowledge of foreign languages. Some alters will have different dominant hands. Some have epilepsy, allergies, or color blindness. Each alter will have their own name, age, and often specific memories or abilities. Some patients have also experienced ocular changes. In a 1989 study, 18 patients with MPD and 9 without were studied. The MPD patients showed greater changes in vision function than controls across their alters. Sometimes there are ophthalmologic changes across alters. One woman had 3 personalities, aged 5, 17, and 35. The 5-year-old had a lazy eye, which was not present in the other alters. One patient had an injury to the left eye from a fight, but that only appeared in the alter that had been in the fight. Dr. Bennett Braun is a psychiatrist at Rush Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center in Chicago and a leading pioneer in this research. He explained, "Many patients have told me they have a drawer full of eyeglasses at home and they are never quite sure which to bring when they go out." The New York Times featured an article on the case of Timmy. When Timmy drank orange juice, he was fine. If an alter came out while the juice was digesting, the alter would have an allergic reaction. When Timmy came back out, the reaction would disappear. Researchers believe that cases like this might provide insights into how psychological states can affect biology. Dr. Braun said, "We're finding the most graphic demonstrations to date of the power of the mind to affect the body." He also said, "If the mind can do this in tearing down body tissue, I think it suggests the same potential for healing." Changes in how the body reacts to medicines can make patients with DID hard to treat. Dr. Braun has seen a few instances of alters reacting differently to medications. A tranquilizer put a childish personality to sleep, but gave an adult alter confusion and racing thoughts. An anticonvulsant for epilepsy had no effect on some alters except those under 12 in one case. The treatment for DID is mostly psychotherapy with hypnosis. The therapist tries to get in touch with as many personalities or identities as possible. They try to understand the alter's roles and functions in the patient's life. They try to create a relationship with the personalities that are violent or self-destructive. Then they try to stop that behavior. The therapist also tries to build communication between personalities and find the one with traumatic memories. This is important because it's believed that DID is caused by physical or sexual abuse in childhood. The identities are created as a defense. The average age of onset of DID is 5.9 years old. The goal of therapy is to enable the patient to break down the separate identities into one identity. How is it possible for there to be such stark biological changes in the same body across alternate identities? What do you think? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ready Mysterious. Join me next week for another captivating mystery.